friends and relatives. Namaste, peace, shalom, assalamu alaikum, blessings, and all good things to you. I want to just speak for a minute. To, this is a private message for this group of friends that I convened, and I'm sorry to be slow in getting back to you. And it was my friend Todd over there in San Francisco had suggested that I should make some sort of introduction, and I've been on the road and only now kind of getting situated to do so. Uh, the definition of hell is separation and division, and the definition of heaven is harmony. And I'm interested in harmonics between in the symphony of and music of the spheres of which we are instruments. And I I feel that much, even most of what we have in our culture in terms of ideas and institutions and protocols, whether in healthcare or psychiatry or criminal, so-called criminal justice, or even in the ways and modalities with which we all interact, are often really based on separating and dividing us. And that's why I believe that with our different orientations and ways of communication and ways of life, it's kind of hard to avoid sometimes frustrating or irritating or challenging or stepping on each other's toes accidentally, as in an awkward dance. But it doesn't have to stay awkward. And and so I believe you all will agree with me that the importance of forgiveness, even forgiveness of both intended and unintentional, irritations and offenses, is that that glue that can prevent the separation. I could go on and on about that, like from my experience in jails and mental hospitals, I realized that there's a concerted effort to divide us. There's also out here in North Dakota, Badlands, we have just one more place where the decimation of the indigenous culture is obvious, and where the paucity and desolation of the white or invader culture is such that, as has been said, that everybody really, nearly everybody, seems to live lives of silent desperation, and that goes just about everywhere I've been, with some exceptions. I I wanted to, so I'm working to be a convener and a uniter of all different things, from different spiritual and religious and psychological and mystical traditions, and for all people. And the place to start would be with those that are closest to me, and everybody who's watching this video is close to me. There's let me start with some of the most recent people to come into my life. One would be you, Amy, from Florida. And Amy and I met through the water temple in Redwood City, and which was significant, obviously, for both of us and perhaps for all of us, the idea of water. And that's actually meshes very well with what we have here, where protecting the water has been the theme against all this fracking that's going on, which is the only reason that the town that I'm in right now is really here in as any considerable entity. And once that's gone, it will leave behind dirty water and not much else. It'll be a ghost town again someday, like all the gold rush towns, except the ones that the biggest of them, that like San Francisco and so on. But anyway, so Amy saw the water temple and wrote to me, and we didn't even know that we were friends on that Facebook so-called friend list. Just lots of people on there that we may have somehow get connected and don't even know. And she sent me a beautiful quote from the Bhagavad Gita the day that we met in the evening on Krishna consciousness. And then the next morning, the manager of the hotel that I stayed at gave me a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and took photos and video of me receiving it. I was thrilled at the synchronicity and serendipity of this, and I already was familiar with the Bhagavad Gita from my ayahuasca shaman days down in Peru, where a Hare Krishna monk had read it to me in a straight run at the tail end of an ayahuasca ceremony while I was on the roof of the ayahuasca lodge in my hammock up there with the monkey. And so that was really significant. Related to that is Natalia, also in Florida, who has recently, through her interest in the healing properties of the mystical blue and white lotus, which is of course the beloved flower of the gods Shiva and Krishna and Ganesh and so many other spiritual entities. And so the two friends I'm closely spiritually connected to in Florida are both separately unaware of each other, becoming involved in spreading and developing of Krishna consciousness. And for those interested in Krishna consciousness or those not, it's really just the same as Christ consciousness or cosmic consciousness, of course. And so that's a very, very encouraging thread. Meanwhile, I was out in California with meeting with old friends, one of my second ex-wife and old college friend Todd Stock, and we had absolutely wonderful time laughing, and connecting over many deep philosophical and spiritual discussions. And that is all of this is propelling us all somewhere. So let's see, who else do we have here? I have to remember who I added. Of course, in this group, I brought together people who have varying levels of experience with transcendental knowledge and, say, transcendental experiences. We have some who merely reside in a perpetual state of transcendental experience. Others who have experienced transcendental states only to come back to reality, the old go to the mountaintop sort of experience. That experience can be over time brought to a level where the mountaintop is everywhere, and that's I think a good goal. Then there's others who have had no experience or very limited with any kind of transcendental experience, and may have varying levels of what I would call resistance to these ideas. And I feel that in a group setting, there's ways that I communicate that are not easy for everybody to deal with or accept. But my message of communication and my particular energy is not the only one that can inform this discussion, and there's people here who can be very helpful to each other in ways that maybe I can't, and that's why I'm trying to bring us together for conversations. There's some people who love to talk and who are extremely outgoing and dynamic, and others who are more quiet, introverted, or dwell more in silence. And I don't want to put any kind of pressure on anybody to do things that they don't feel comfortable with. And so, if I was if I was to make just a group with, as I started to with 3 or 4 or 5 people, that might be too little, and to get just the right size of group where there could be enough sharing and dialogue, and those who want to just sit on sides and listen can do so. And so that's really, but all the people here I feel are very special, and all of you have very very close special relationships with me. And my model of life is sort of that if I if I love somebody, I I love everybody that they love. I think that, so like if anybody is close to me, I feel then equally close to everybody that they're close to, without as a principle. Actually, it's even more universal than that. But that I say that for that could be an entryway to looking at the subject of universality of love. And let me see. Oh, so as I was as I was talking to Todd Stock, my old college friend who knows me. Oh, who he knows me from a long time back when I was basically confused and heavy drinking lunatic of some sort. And then there's other people who only know me as a as in my current state, as a whatever that is, but as a not I don't use the word sober, because I always hated the word sober. I never felt like it was something to aspire to. And having given up alcohol almost 5 years ago, another 2 weeks, it'll be 5 years. And if I had known what it would do for me to quit, but the thing is, you have to be willing to go through a little bit of a transition phase, which can be uncomfortable. And that's where the lesson that I've learned and taken to heart in the last years is to go out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. And if you get out of your comfort zone for the sake of unconditional love, miracles begin to manifest right away. I mean, it's a powerful thing, and as like my friend Joe likes to tell people, your comfort zone isn't really that comfortable. You think you're comfortable in that comfort zone, and going out of it and getting uncomfortable for the right reasons leads you to other levels of comfort, which may not be physical, and they may not be social. But they may be transcendental, and they may be something greater than we ever. And I think that I'm should be preaching to the choir here, but as I said, I'm bringing together people at different levels of development of these qualities and understandings, people of different ages and backgrounds, and there's a lot of benefit to do that. Right now, out here in North Dakota, I'm in the land of, in a way, of there's some kind of I have some kind of family ties, and run really deep here to the Dakotas because I was raised in the East and yet spent 5 years out here in down in South Dakota. But South North Dakota are really fictions. There is just the Dakotas. It's just this land, and our states and the way they divided it in up into things uh, after stealing it is kind of irrelevant. But then my son Alexander Sharif has been born in Cairo, Egypt, and lived in Lebanon and as well as in you know the United States on the East Coast with me to some extent. And now, whatever the reason, he's coming here to make the money in the oil fields. He still, for some reason, was brought back to North Dakota. Was it for him or was it to bring me back here? I don't actually know, but I am working out here now to find how I can connect to what I'm here for, which I could be wrong, but I believe it could be to meet up with Native people and I'm looking for authentic uh, indigenous shamans, and that's one of my missions here. It may be that I'm here for something utterly different, or for, that's usually the case, many things, but I had been trying to think about what to say to to uh, to you all as introduction, and I thought about writing, and and I could do that, but not everyone likes to read like volumes and volumes. So I wanted to. Oh, oh yeah. So I was. Oh yeah. Here's what I wrote. This is back in the 19th, and now we're the 29th. So this is 10 days ago. Um, I sent a group message to select but not exclusive people. Todd Stock suggested an introduction and what it means. I'd made an intro, but somehow it got lost, so I'll do a better one. I'd mentioned Thoreau, Emerson, Krishna, Salvation Yoga, or rather, I'd shared it. Salvation Yoga. I assumed everyone would get out what they needed, but to ease comprehension, I could write, but people have trouble concentrating on many words, so I made it brief. I'm confident, that's a cosmic understatement, laughter of the immortals. I had told them I had been using the I Ching for divinations and did them for many of these, like many of you, I've done divinations in the past, and it's startling how accurate and relevant and you know, cosmically potent they are. But recently, I've been doing extemporaneous divinations with the Bhagavad Gita since since Amy and Dylan started or restarted that aspect. So Dylan was the hotel manager at the place where I who gave me the Bhagavad Gita, and so I as I said I'd heard it before and the whole Bhagavad Gita, and when I heard it, you know you all know that I'm a radical proponent of nonviolence and anti-military sort of attitudes, peace, and it was so when I heard the Bhagavad Gita the first time, I loved it. It seemed to answer so many questions. I was on ayahuasca at the time, which made it even more intense. And having it read to me by that Slovenian Hare Krishna monk or former Hare Krishna monk, and and so I was enjoying it, but I couldn't help but question some of the things in there about this whole idea. When I heard about how was Arjuna, how his so many of his family members and friends were in the opposition. I mean, you know what that means. I mean, when it comes to these spiritual principles, there it's a fundamental reality that you're going to find people you love are energetically opposed to you. Now, I see that, the battle is in that's the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, is between good and evil, between the forces of divinity and the demoniacs. That's when by the way, where I first got the word demoniac. I never used it before I heard the Bhagavad Gita, and it seems to apply. And I pictured myself in his position, being in a war, and you're a warrior, and you have to, and the idea of having to go and fight and destroying people that were so close to you seems horrible, and then yet Krishna's saying do it. So I was a little confused by that, and I was asking questions of Peter, you know, like, it's not that I'm rejecting it, but I can't help but, like, as he did, and I think that that's one of the beautiful things about the Bhagavad Gita, is that it shows this classic dialogue between the soul and divinity, and it's like coming to understanding of divine purpose, and also both a sort of submission, but also an informed submission to what is the highest good and the best thing. And so I was questioning the idea of killing, and essentially, and I guess we could say that the war and the killing that existed in those times, and it's existed up until this time, but that does not mean it will exist forever. It's a matter of fact, I consider my purpose on earth to end that. And so, obviously, to have one of the greatest spiritual treasures of the world talking about war was sort of a dissonance in my mind, or in my soul at the time. But when we came to the end of our reading, Peter took the Bhagavad Gita, and he opened it up like that and read, and it came to that's kind of like getting a concluding thing. A lot of you do that, and it's a cool thing to do. So he opened it up, and it said that something to the effect that the wisdom on this page supersedes and is a higher, and can contradict anything else in the entire book. That's what it said. And I was very, very grateful to Krishna for that vote of confidence. Because I think when you go to divinity with a totally open and sincere heart, and don't try to hide any of your questions or intentions, that you'll find that there is no problem. And so that came up anyway. So the way that people do the I Ching and roll this method of divination, you can do a divination by throwing the coins, but you can also just at random moments pick up and read a page and say, that fits perfectly into our timeline, and that's what I've been doing. But I said so, but for clarity of my dear beloved friends, and that is you, I seek for those I love like cosmic thunder, my love. And what I came up with, that was the I Ching I was going to for that oracle. And this is guidance for this group. That's what I was asking. And it came up as clinging fire. Let me make sure that's right. Wait a minute. I think it was broken. That Lee over, yeah. Ah, that's why that was what I was in the wrong section. That was the discussions. That's why I was finding something a little different. I'll have to go back and read that later. Um, so the hexagram is another double sign. Li means to cling to something, to be conditioned or depend or rest on something. It's also brightness. So the judgment, perseverance furthers, care of the cow brings good fortune. Um, the image is fire. And the lines, as some of you may know, when you do the lines, if you have all yin or all yang, that's called old yin old yang, and it results in well, first it results in a change in diagram, but also each of the lines if has a number attached to it, and so you can when you read the actual lines, you get very much more specific advice than just than even the general one. And we, for our hexagram here, had for Lee, the clinging fire, uh, had 6 in the 5th place. Tears and floods, sighing and lamenting, good fortune. And it says here the zenith of life has been reached, where there no warning one would at this point consume oneself like a flame. Instead, understanding the vanity of all things, one may put aside both hope and fear, and sigh and lament. If one is intent on retaining his clarity of mind, good fortune will come from this grief. For here we are dealing not with a passing mood, as in the 9 in the 3rd place, but with a real change of heart. And now we did not get 9 in 3rd place, but what that one is in the light of the setting sun, men either beat the pot and sing or loudly bewail the approach of old age. Misfortune. We didn't get that, which was very good. We've got 6 in the 5th place. Now I don't know exactly who, how to interpret it, something like this when we have a disparate group of people. I think it applies probably to some of you. It could apply to me because I'm probably the oldest one, as far as, but it could also, and it does apply to all of us, all of you who are listening in some way. So, change of heart, making a change of heart. So, a sincere change of heart, it says. So that was now because we had 6 in the 5th place. That changes they come in sets, the hexagrams. Hexagram 6 lines, and the one it changed into is number 13, fellowship. And fellowship was what brought me to I did not know about the I Ching until I was in Puerto Rico, till our good friend Glenn. Did I put Glenn in this group? I probably should. He introduced it to me by dreaming of the I Ching, of seeing one of the hexagrams but not knowing what it meant, and he was dreaming of fellowship. And it's my belief that we're all dreaming of fellowship if we don't have it, and it's what humanity seeks for, and that relates back to the original thing I talked about, which was hell versus heaven, harmony versus separation. How many people do you know who cut ties regularly? Facebook, we cut people off if they offend us or say something wrong, and I'm not saying that's always the wrong thing to do. I've done it once or twice. Um, but in general, we want not to cut, but to include. And so fellowship also relates to what it says that I love about fellowship. I think it has a secret to success for an organization and for a community. If you don't have something that's higher than the individual and his own welfare, then you don't you don't have any kind of anything that can last or sustain. Like you've heard of many communes and societies that start with great intentions, but they kind of break down and fall apart. All those hippie communes from the 60s, because ultimately the people were, their highest thing was their own self development, their own self expression, their own needs, their own wants, and that will never, that can last for a while if we all, if you're serving your need helps me serve my need. That's what I call quid pro quo, and that will work for a little while, like America. But it leaves you desolate. It leaves people feeling that they have around them friends and life and love when really they've got nothing. And you find that when it breaks down. So one of the things I think most important, and what I understand from a lot of study of communities, both in practice and in practical observation and book studying, is that there has to be a united focus of something higher, and ideally or essentially something for which you would be willing to forego your own life. And if everybody has that, that's called monastic, in a sense, monastic discipline or monastic community. Then we have the new monasticism, which has to do with the coming of the golden age. And that's what I'm trying to bring people together to usher in the age of Aquarius, Shambhala, the New Jerusalem, the kingdom of heaven on earth. Uh, oh, finally, I wish to speak of things that are so intense. They make me feel shaken and shattered to even dwell, to focus, to be conscious of. And that's what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about things that are so intense that it's almost overwhelming, to almost difficult to bear them. They're even that they're so wonderful, so good, so beautiful, and so absolutely astoundingly awe-inspiringly earth-shaking. That's what I want to talk about. And so it's a warning here that, and some of you already know that very well. Actually, you all do. But I think, you know, some people say, well, no, that's enough. Well, maybe if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I understand, and sometimes we have to take breaks, and I try to respect everybody when they tell me, "Hey, Todd, I need a break." But I love to, I especially am grateful for those of you who have the capacity and the strength to bear a little bit more than average. So that's my message. I hope that's kind of gets things going. There's a lot more I could say, but I don't want to do like a 2 hour message. So, hey, I love you all and thank you so much for listening if you got this far. And yeah, this is something I think you know what we're doing. I, I'm very excited and I thank you.